Hello.
Oh, Bob.
I'm here instead of Bob. Oh.
It was Bob making sure I was on the call.
Oh, okay, fantastic. How's everyone doing this afternoon?
Good morning for me.
Yes.
Fantastic, but we'll get better.
Good. Good. Master Moody should be on with us momentarily. Masters Oliver and Smith are traveling this afternoon.
Awesome. And I have, in addition to my wife with me today, I have my oldest son as well.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you. You guys get in or not?
Yeah, we're good. We're here. We're in the wings. Otherwise, we're all.
Hi.
Otherwise, we're all crooked.
Ron, congratulations. I saw your post.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Also did my first enrollments at the new price point yesterday. I missed one though, and I went back and studied all the overcoming objections and everything afterwards because I missed. I got two, but I missed the third one of my enrollment attempts yesterday.
Got the audio working here, Mindy?
Yes, you should, sir.
All right, perfect. All right, we'll give you a minute for everybody to get on. We got Steve DiCastillo. Is that
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Good to meet you. We'll let you introduce yourself in a little bit when we get a few more, get everybody kind of connected today. We're going to go over quite a bit today, so we've got a lot to work on. We'll let everybody get connected. Thanks, Mindy, for getting us connected up.
Absolutely.
All right. What questions? Let's get to some. So the early birds get a little bit of extra bonus here. So what kind of questions you guys have, and I'll put those down, and we'll try to cover them. And then we got some things to cover kind of in general. What questions do you guys have that we want to cover, and then we'll get to those during the meeting today. What kind of hot topics that we may have to work with.
I kind of have one, but it'll be acceptable if that's in the thing and you haven't looked at it yet, right? Like,
yeah.
Because like, so I wrote my first couple people under the new system yesterday. We just made family classes. We just, and then I know even from y'all's follow up with us, like now there should be a very specific process of what we do with them. Not sure where, is that coming up in one of the next tutorials, or is there, as far as
Yeah, so what do you do once you enroll somebody and how you do renewals? So we've got a lot of that on their member site, and I would recommend looking at that first. So what we need to make sure we do, and hey, we got Sam from Master Bertoldi's team here too.
Sure.
There's really three main things as we get here, as you kind of make notes on what you have to accomplish in our quick start meeting and what your main objective should be. The three main things that you need to do as you start out are get a flood of students in. So that's the thing number one. And most of the time when we have people start with us, they go, well, that would solve all our problems. That would be the number one thing that I need to fix. I just need more students. That would fix everything. Well, that usually really isn't the number one thing you got to fix. It's one of the number one things. That's 1A. Usually 1B is a lot of times we don't make enough money per student. And then the other thing is maybe we're losing more students than we thought we were. So one of the things we got to do is get a flood of students. The other thing, the second thing that we've got to make sure we do is get our closing rate up, making sure we're closing 80% or so of the students. Now that number is a little bit fuzzy because if the flood of students is coming from, let's say, event marketing sometimes, or some other types of marketing, our closing rate might be a little bit lower. But generally we want to close about 80% of our students and making sure that closing rate, the third thing is that it's a higher enough dollar amount. So Steve, to kind of answer your question, one thing to worry about is, in some ways, don't worry about that too much. And I'm definitely going to answer your question. Don't worry about what the long range thing is with, how do we do our renewals and how do we get them into leadership? And a lot of times when people start with us, they worry about their curriculum and they worry about how to do the upgrades and how to do the renewals and how to do the other stuff and how to do things. Well, if you can fix three main things and make sure these three numbers are right, you get plenty of new students in, so you're doing enough intro lessons, you're converting them at a high enough rate, you're not letting them all go, and that the dollar amount that you're converting them at is high enough, we can pretty much solve all the downstream stuff later. Okay, that being said, on our member site, you can look up renewals, and then there'll be a lot of stuff that we put together on the renewal process. For our guys that are in our program that have been with us a little while, we spend a lot more time in detail. Of course, kind of like I just said, we've solved those first three problems. And then after you solve those first three problems, then we kind of tackle the next part. But you can look ahead a little bit on the member site and what we would do. Are you asking specifically what you do in the next couple of weeks, or what you do to get them renewed in the next?
So my front desk thing is like, okay, I know that there's guys like, does a thank you letter go out? Does a picture get taken?
Yeah.
Do we do this? Do we do that? Like all the, like, where are all of those? It's like, okay, they signed up today, send out a thank you letter. Take the picture before
Yeah,
wipe all down second lesson.
Sure.
High five 20 times, like come in the door for the first time, just whatever, whatever.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. I think it'd be valuable to talk a little bit about some things you can do. And I'm gonna join with my my whiteboard here a little bit too. And I've just got to type in the meeting ID here. And if you guys aren't using these kind of features, if you're using Zoom, these are pretty valuable features when you're doing your enrollments. Okay, so look at it this way. Hey Mindy, you got to let me be a host. You got to let me be a co-host, not a host. Don't make me the host. Make me a co-host on both of my IDs. Okay, there we go. So now it's not letting me share. So you figure that out. You figure that out so that I can share.
There we go.
All right. It's still not letting me share. Okay, well, I won't do it the fancy way then.
Okay, there you go. It should be set now.
Oh, now I can do it. Okay, so now we figured out how to do it the good way. All right, so when think about it this way, you have an intro lesson, you enroll them, and then you've got some time before you talk to them about a renewal. Okay, so that's what you guys are talking about, right? So what are some things that you can do? And for our guys that have been with us a while, like I think Jeff's on here, Chuck Bertoli's team, we got Jan Lappin's team on here. There's some things that can happen in between now and when you talk to them about renewing. Now, I'm not talking about the renewal steps that we talked about yesterday, but what can you do? So in my school, what we do is they immediately get welcome, call, text, email, and mail. So this call is going to go out the next day. We're going to give them a call and thank them. That's like a personal call, like an actual person calls them, not like an automated system. They're going to get a text that's going to be telling them when their next class is, and then they're going to get an email with a thank you, but also with directions about what's going on. So like what's happening in the school, what have they got to have happen next? This is after an enrollment. So this isn't between intro 1 and intro 2. We can talk about that intro 1 and intro 2 as well. So what happens between these? But then they're going to get mail, and they'll just after their first lesson, they're going to get mail. And this is a welcome card. What's important about this is it does a couple things. It tells them when, it thanks them, so thank you. It also tells them when their next classes are going to be, especially the progress check. So the progress check that's going to happen in a couple weeks. So as soon as they enroll, one of the things that always happens, and you ought to use the policies and procedures, and you can look that up on our Facebook group, policies and procedures. When they finish enrolling, they paid you the money, they get their uniform, everything's done. We go through a list, a checklist. I don't know who's using that yet. Some of our older time guys probably using it. But a policies and procedure is just a list of things that that's going to be coming up. So we say, here's how you get your information about what upcoming events. Here's the extension policy. If you miss any classes, we just add that time onto the end of the program. It doesn't interfere with your monthly payments. See what I just said there? So that way, if there's a, they leave for the summer. Hey, I don't want to pay because I'm leaving for the summer. Oh, no problem. We just add that time onto the end of your program. It doesn't interfere with your monthly payments at all. So on day one, when they've enrolled, we've already covered the situation where, hey, it's the coronavirus, I'm not going to be coming in. Oh, no problem. We just add that time onto your monthly payments. We've already solved that. So that's why for my school, we never had any billing. We didn't lose any billing whatsoever. We've never lost any for the summer, and it's 195 degrees in Arizona. So, people leave for 3 months during the summer all the time, never lose any billing. So policies and procedures is something that's done here too. But that mail lets them know what's coming up and when their progress check happens, and that's done with the policies and procedures. Does that kind of partly answer your question? So these steps are going to be done. The other thing that happens is they get on schedule once, and that's some software that we recommend that schedules, we do their first 3 weeks. So that's going to be about 6 classes. And we tell them that at the policies and procedures too. So we're also going to send you some reminders by email and text just until you feel comfortable with the schedule for your next 6 classes about the first 3 weeks. That way, the first 3 weeks are typically the hardest time for people in terms of making sure they attend classes. So I'm sure you guys have enrolled people and then maybe they missed their first class or maybe they missed their second class. And those are the hardest ones to get to come back to class. Okay, even though they paid you and everything's fine, just them paying you, it doesn't matter. I don't care about the money. I want to make sure that my new people make their first 6 classes. So we're going to put them in schedule 1. So for our new guys, if you don't know how to use that, there's a really good video that Bob Dunn and Merrick, our propeller head kind of technical guy, has done on how to set that up. So you can set up schedule 1. If you have a CRM system, like one of these systems, Rainmaker, Kicksite, whatever you're using, you could use those. We still recommend schedule 1 in addition to that. So that happens. I would like to ask, any of our longer term guys, what other than, forget renewal steps for a second, what other things do you guys do for a new basic member after they leave and they've done their first lesson? What other things would you guys put on the list? Because I could add more stuff, but what else would you guys do?
Sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
We send a welcome letter generically kind of to the parents reviewing the benefits they're going to get. And then I also send a little letter well, it looks like I write it myself, to the kids with a little sticker in it. It's got our tattoo of our logo. So we do and then we introduce them to another, like at least we can't very well now except for online, but we used to introduce them to someone else in the studio. So those are a couple little things that we did. We have a water bottle. Oh, and then we have a big parent orientation for all the parents, and we give them gifts. We give them like all branded gifts. And we try to do that within the first month that they're there. I have one every month.
So what Jan just said, now we've moved on to the next step, which is great. So Jan Lappin, who's one of our higher level members, she's talking about what happens when they come to the next classes. So a parent orientation could be in one of the steps that you do. Again, we're not necessarily talking about a renewal or getting them to enroll in leadership, but these are just steps to make sure that they have an idea that they're going to become black belts someday. You said of the parent orientation, the other was introduce them to another member when they come in. What we'll do at their very first class, now we move to the next steps. So the next steps would be when they come in for their first class. What a lot of schools do is they enroll people, and then their first class is going to be, they just come in for their first class and they take class. It's like they toss them over the wall into the instruction zone, and that's it. So for us, the first class, they've enrolled, they've paid, they're good. Their very first class is a totally different thing. They're going to get they get a certificate. The parent stands up and receives the certificate with the the kid. We give them a little headband, and we give them like their school patch that they get. They get that at the first class. They don't get that when they enroll. So we save some of the stuff that they would get at the enrollment for the first class. The other thing that's even more important is the first class scheduled, and Jan, I kind of interrupted you. Maybe I missed some stuff that you did, but the first class, it's when they walk in, we walk them through the whole process again, where they stand, where they put their stuff, where they sit before class, where everything goes, so that they're very comfortable. Because even though they've done a class already, we want to make sure, hey, it's their first real class. Now they're part of the club. We want to walk them through the club rules again. Okay. After the first class, they're going to get another, I don't know if you can read my handwriting here, they get another great work card. I'll put a GW there if you can't read it. So they're going to get always another great work card after the first class. My best story about this was one of my buddies enrolled his kid, and I hadn't gone over to his house for about a year after he enrolled his kid. I was just busy. I hadn't been to his house. I went over to his house about a year after he enrolled his kid, and up on the fridge was their great work card from their first class. This means a lot to the kid. So Jan, what you said about the letter to the kid, I love that one. A letter to the kid is even better. Okay, anybody else have anything to add? So this is quite a bit in that first week, and this is totally separate from the any kind of renewal, or if anybody's calling it using the word upgrade. We like to use the word renewal. Anybody else of our longtime members have anything to add on that?
I
Nope.
have things that we send. So we take a picture of them taking their first class and we put it in their student file. And then we use an app called TouchNote to send a postcard. It has the picture of them on one side and then a custom message on the other side. And we do this with their very first class when they join. And then this is once they are invited into leadership or masters, they get that as well.
That's a great step. That's a great step. And then you can start integrating. So again, for our new guys, and even if you've been with us a few months, start thinking about your main goals are 3 things. Is flood of new members, 80% plus enrollment rate, and the last thing is get your income per member up. And the only thing you're really going to worry about now is at the introductory lesson. So, getting this up, a lot of people start out with this at $100 a month. My school, we're at $297 per month is what our basic membership is. Getting somewhere in that range. And if you're at $100 a month now, at least get up to $147 or $197 a month is your basic membership. And then we can start layering things on top of that. So those are your 3 major projects right now. But I love what you just said, Rachel. And so that starts getting the process started so that people will stay. And then over the next month or 2, we'll help you with the rest of it. Okay, Steve, does that help?
That was great. That was great, sir. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Any questions on that? Nope. Okay, awesome. So let's get kind of a little bit, now that we've got a little bit more of a quorum here, I'll stop my share since Mindy allowed me to share now. We got a little bit more of a quorum and we can get to some other questions. But again, those are 3 numbers for everybody on the call and even some of our longtime members to take a look and see. we always talk about getting a flood of members, and we're always working about marketing. So that's probably not one that you're not hypersensitive to. The second thing though is close rate every month, and sometimes every week, and every enrollment. That's something to be always hypersensitive to. And when we say close rate, let me be clear about that. I'll share again. I like to do this by drawing. I apologize if maybe this isn't everybody's style. If we have lead, or let's say appointment, so we have an appointment, and they turn into an intro 1, and they turn into an intro 2, and then they enroll. So when we say close rate, it means to enrollment. So it should be 80% appointment to enrollment. And I hear people get confused about this number a little bit. They say, oh, I've got an 80%. When they come in, or let me say this better. When they come in for my intro 2, I get 80% of these guys. When they come in for intro 2, I enroll 80% of those. I'm really great. Well, that's not really very good if from intro 1 to intro 2, you only get 50% of these to show up. That would be kind of a lousy close rate. That means you had only about a 40% close rate, right? Because you had 100% here, only 50% here, and then 80% of these equals 40%. If that math makes sense to everybody. So when we talk about close rate, it's from appointment for somebody that was potentially going to do an enrollment, not a lead that came in for a birthday party. They're not quite an appointment yet. Somebody who was going to do an appointment for an enrollment to enrollment. That's what we're talking about when we say 80%. That's our target number. We're a little bit forgiving if it's certain kinds of leads, you're not necessarily going to hit that number, but overall we're shooting for 80%. Some leads off your website that came in from an AdWords lead, from an AdWords campaign, those guys will do 90% or better because they were looking for karate. They came in and we do a good lesson, 90% or better usually with those kind of leads. Okay, so 3 things, and for all of our members here, this call should be about getting our conversion rate, getting our price point up, and third thing is getting enough members in. Okay, so let's get, now that we got enough people here, Steve, I want to introduce you. I also want to introduce William Wong, 2 new members here. So let's start with William because we've already talked to Steve a little bit, and then we'll come back to Steve. William, can you introduce yourself a little bit? You're one of our new members. I think Jan's already met you.
Yes.
But go ahead, tell us a little bit about you and where you're at and a little bit about your school.
Yeah, so we own and operate a school now for just over 3 years. We're located in Lincoln, California, which is in the Sacramento area, Northern California. It's me and my family. So my wife runs it with me. My daughter's 18. I have an 11-year-old son that's also a black belt and helps out with classes. Then I have also a 22-month-old. So we have them spread out pretty well. And we're happy to be here. We've heard a lot of great things. I've talked to Jan. I've talked to Colby. I've also talked to Amanda just as references before I made the decision to jump in. So I was a little hesitant, but I'm really excited and happy that I'm here.
Awesome. Well, welcome. I look forward to having you get some big results. So thank you. And Steve, how do you pronounce your last name? Del Castillo?
Del Castillo, yes, sir.
Del Castillo. Thank you. Thank you for correcting me. So tell us a little bit about your school.
So we're Krav Maga Martial Arts in Tampa, Florida. It's Land O'Lakes, but the outskirts of Tampa, Florida. And I also run the business here with my wife, who is with me. And my oldest son, Harley, is also with me. He actually does a lot of our online marketing and social media and such.
Okay.
So we've been in business for 20 years. Had some relative successes and things along the way, and some good mentorship along the way. But I somehow came in contact with y'all, read Master Oliver's books, and started listening to some of the free videos you had up, and I was just like, okay, I think this, we have the thing that got us where we're at, and then I was like, okay, I think these gentlemen have the thing to get me the rest of the way where I want to be.
Perfect. Well, that's usually, thank you for being here. I appreciate you letting us know about you. And that's a lot of what we have is people that have been, You know, frankly, there's a lot of information out on the internet, and a lot of information. A lot of people trying to tell people what to do, and in a lot of cases, this is the stop for people that want to kind of get to the top 2% or top 5% in the industry. And as far as like Krav Maga goes, we've had a lot of schools that, in a lot of ways, what we're doing is principle based. Well, not in a lot of ways. What we're doing is principle based. It's really agnostic for what style you do, because we're working on really fundamental things. For example, you know, we talked about in our, those of you guys who were on our call yesterday, we were talking about getting people to very high level programs, and some of our advanced members that are doing, you know, very, very big numbers. And we talked about curriculum, and one of the principles would be is, you know, if you add more curriculum, and, you know, that's, a lot of you guys know me from some of my academic background in curriculum, but if you add more curriculum, what's going to happen to your quality? Would it go up or down? If I do it in the same amount of time, if I still have a 30-minute class and I add more stuff, what's going to happen? Quality up or down?
Yeah.
Down, right? So, but what happens with us in martial arts is a lot of times we end up adding more stuff, and we don't really worry about we don't understand that consequence. So that's just a principle that if we start talking about how we're dealing with our curriculum, when you get more advanced, we want to make sure that we understand both of those principles. That's not a sales thing. It relates to your sales, it relates to your business, but we want to have good principles that work for everybody. So if you're a Taekwondo school or a Krav Maga school or a Jiu-Jitsu school, it's going to work. So we appreciate having you here. So it's pretty cool to have you guys both here today. Okay, so let's talk about what other questions you guys have. I think that was a good start. We've got a lot of strangeness going on because you guys are all in different states of restarting, and you're all in different states of growth. Maybe we could hear from some of, you know, we got Florida, who's, you know, kind of reopened a lot more. And then I think, you know, I think we have somebody from New Jersey here who's kind of still closed down. But what questions do we have for some of this restarting or regrowing time, and what we can do?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So our biggest and our toughest thing now is that we're in New Jersey, you know, really close to New York. So things are pretty tight. Our governor, you know, we just reopened some beaches, looked a little crazy. It looks like he's going to be tightening the reins a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're projecting that hopefully we'll be able to open things up slowly starting next month. And our plan was to go forward and start with one-on-one classes. So kind of get everybody through the threshold of getting into the school without, you know, running a full-on class. What do you think about that as a way to get people into the school, you know, feeling a little bit comfortable? They can see the steps we're taking in terms of cleaning on the one-on-one basis. We can have that conversation where it's like, this is what we're doing to keep the students safe before we do a bigger open up, like around July.
Well, okay, so we've got to consider what the ramifications of all of this are.
Sure.
There's going to be a group of people that are never going to come back until there's a vaccine.
Sure.
So there's going to be a group of people that want to only come back if they're in person. We got a couple of those, right? They're like, yeah, we'll just wait. Now, those people may still be paying us. You know, the money's not, let's not worry about the money part of this right now.
Yeah.
But in our case, they're fine paying us. They don't care. They'll get the time at the end of the program, just like we talked about a minute ago, because we told them that on day one.
Sure.
That if you do this right, this is not a financial issue. But we want to get our students back in because we know that's going to be in their best interest. The only reason to have classes offline or in person is for the students that won't do it online.
Sure.
Like if you guys could get 100% of your students doing it online during this time where it's going to be hybrid, there wouldn't really be a reason to start the private lessons or have any of this hassle.
Right.
Would there?
Right.
So that's what you've got to kind of evaluate. Do I have students that are holding off until they're going to be in person or not?
Okay, and that's what I was thinking. So really aim for the ones that we haven't been able to get on, or it's been a challenge to get onto the Zoom meetings consistently. Those are the ones we should be aiming for when we start to do those one-on-ones, get them back in.
Yeah, and yes, maybe. And so the consideration here is we've got to be careful on making the assumption that if we open up for in-person classes, that it's going to be this big flood of people and it's going to improve our retention. Because what are we really trying to do? We're trying to, we have three main things that we do in our business. Get more people
Yes, sir.
and get them to stay longer, improve retention, and then have them pay at a higher dollar amount.
Sure.
In other words, and really the dollar amount, if we forget about that in terms of charging them the more, we just keeping them doing it longer gets us more money, makes us more income, right? So the only reason to do the private lessons would be to try to get those people back and re-engage.
Sure.
Does that make sense? So you got to be real careful on creating an elaborate system just because we think it's going to make a difference.
Right.
You got to do it with the idea that I'm going to do something because I have a specific outcome in mind. I'm going to get those 20 people that haven't shown up. I'm going to try to really attack them and get them re-engaged to bring them back in. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Because all the ones that are doing online lessons, and you're going to have to continue doing online lessons, because I'll give you an example. In our school, we were able to open up for regular classes yesterday. Was our first day that we could. We only had like 3 people show up. All the rest of them were online.
Sir.
I mean, these guys seem to like the online classes. Now, I don't know if that's different in somebody else's school. I know Scott Sullivan had a pretty good sized class. Jan, how are your classes going for the offline classes, or have you guys started them yet? Or I mean, online or offline, what % of people are coming in and doing physical in person?
None so far. All we're doing is outside classes. June 1st, we're going to open up for inside classes.
For your
But
outside,
coming to the outside ones.
how many are coming?
A bunch. I only have one class 2 nights a week. I have it tonight. I wanted to see how it would go and how many would come. And
So
I've
you-
got a lot.
So you had a lot. So I think you're going to get different results on how many people are coming. I think having group classes would be good. To do privates, I think I would do that on an individual basis. So I gave you a big long answer, maybe too long an answer, but everybody should be thinking about the principles. Why am I doing these? And if I just open it up to everybody and the ones that sign up, here's what you always got to be careful of in your school, and not to make this a big long rant, but here's what you got to be careful of in your school. You do something, and the ones that sign up for these privates are all the people that were already doing it online and you were taking care of anyway.
Sir.
So now you fill up a whole bunch of private lesson slots and everything's done, but they were doing it anyway. They were happy with what you were doing in the first place.
Right. So there's no real benefit or upside to doing it for those guys.
Yeah, exactly. So what I might do in that case, if you're getting this transition, and as far as like whether they're comfortable with your cleanliness and all the other stuff, I don't think that, to me, I don't know that that's really particularly, just do a good job and make sure you follow what Master Oliver's done in the checklist and do all those things, and people will probably be overwhelmed with what you're doing for cleanliness anyway. And I don't think you have to demonstrate that much. Just make sure you tell everybody that you're going to be following the exceeding CDC, White House, and state guidelines. Use that statement, and then everybody will probably believe you, because we have a reputation of being trustworthy, hopefully. So
Absolutely.
I think, I don't think that's going to be a big deal. So be really careful, everybody, of assuming that there's this big flood of people because you're open. Use it for a particular business reason. I'm doing it to get more people back in, or the other reason is, but to follow up with what you're asking, Sam, I'm doing it in my marketing if I can do that. So if you're doing private lessons and you can do those and get away with that in New Jersey, and again, for all you guys, if you can get away with some in-person classes, I'll give you an example. Groupon has Groupon has regular coupons and they have online coupons. So you can run 2 Groupons at the same time. You couldn't normally do that.
Right.
But you can double the amount of marketing you can do now.
Okay, sir.
So you can run marketing for in-person classes. On your website, you can have in-person or online, live, virtual. So you could have on your website both of those opportunities. Dervish, we were talking about London, and you guys are locked down. You can't do any in-person yet. As soon as you could possibly do in-person, to get back to what Sam's saying, you should market both options so that the people that are staying home till the vaccine comes out respond, and the people that don't want to do anything unless they can do it in person respond, and then everybody in the middle can do whichever one they want. Does that make
Pastor
sense?
Moody?
Yeah.
I've been open since April 4th. The state of Arkansas was kind of like Georgia. We were pretty good about, as long as we follow basic CDC guidelines, and we, of course, we try and exceed it, of course. But let me just kind of tell you what's been happening. So
Go ahead.
since then, because that's about 2 or 3 weeks,
Yep.
week 1 was like what you guys were facing. I might have gotten 15 students back, something
Yeah.
like that. About week 2, it got to about 20. And now we're on week 3, and it's got to about maybe 25 or so. So it's gradually going up. It's kind of, as we get warmer, and I think it's kind of wearing on people a bit. Now, obviously, we're offering both. We're offering we're just basically Zooming our live class. But I'm seeing the numbers here gradually. Now, you know, the state has an attitude, maybe more than some other states, but that's what we've been witnessing. Just kind of slow, unfortunately, real slow. And then same with the intros. I'm offering now. I'm asking, would you want to continue the interactive on Zoom, or if you know, you can come in live and we can do a one-on-one. So I'm kind of, you know, asking people that now too with the intros. So I hope.
Yeah, you want to be able to have both options. So that's the key. So you got 2 parts. One is your marketing. So what Jack's saying is exactly right. You want to have marketing for both options.
Sure.
And if you can separate it, that's even better. You know, for your website, you'll probably have to put both of those on your primary offer.
Right.
Okay. Because you know, otherwise you can't tell what people are you can't tell which people want on the front end.
Right.
But in some cases you can market both, because you may, like on Eventbrite, and Mindy's our Eventbrite expert, but you could have multiple offers, some online classes and then some for offline classes. Right, Mindy?
Yes.
Yeah, so we threw in how to do Eventbrite with her a while ago, and you can set up an account for our new guys. That's another additional thing you can get. You might get a member. If you got a member a month from that, that would be great. So is that making sense to everybody? Number one, what Sam's doing, I hear a lot of people do that. Hey, I can start doing classes, so I do something. What our recommendation generally is this: teach your regular class schedule. Just teach your regular class schedule. Teach it online, and then when you can start letting people come back in, do online and offline. Just teach the classes and have them filmed at the same time. As far as private lessons, let me address that. If I have students that aren't attending, my normal process is call them up and see if I can get contact with them, and then do a private lesson if I need to re-engage them.
Right. And that's what we would do anyway, without COVID.
That's your normal process.
Right.
Right? Now that private lesson may be online, because maybe the issue wasn't online and in person. The issue might have been lazy, or they got distracted by the whole coronavirus thing, or crap happened, and then they didn't show up. So your normal attendance process just follow. If people aren't attending, and that's another thing, is we see people being weak on attendance tracking during this time. You got to be really, really hard on attendance tracking normally and all the time, but don't slack off on it now. If anybody's not attending, we got to be hitting them with calls, text, email, and mail, just like we talked about with the new members that Steve talked about. And if they're not coming in, we get them back in, and one of the tools that we have is a private lesson. So I would just use that. I would just use the private lesson tool as, I think my internet's unstable here. Hopefully that fixed it. I would just use the private lesson tool as a tool in the attendance tracking. So there's my really long answer that hopefully helped. Did that help a little bit?
Well, yes, sir, definitely.
So I would definitely encourage everybody to start marketing that you do in-person classes, even if you're a little bit ahead of your state's requirements.
I was going to say, we're not allowed to open up just yet, but we're kind of figuring out what we're going to do and what our steps are going to be once things start to lighten up on us. So we want to be ahead of that. So once it hits, we can just hop on it and get going. So that's really good.
There's nothing stopping you from marketing that you can do in-person classes and having people respond and put it on a wait list.
Sure. Okay. Right.
I mean, there's no law that came down that said you couldn't market for that. They call and say, yes, we're going to be starting in-person classes as soon as the thing we can offer you on right now. and do an enrollment online, and then they can start in person if they want to wait, or they can do online now.
Right.
So you just don't know which get response. If you're doing different marketing with schools, it could be, and we also offer online that might, or offline, that may get you some response right now. If you're posting some things on Eventbrite, that would be one way, and on the different sites you could use, and we can talk again about some marketing that you can do. So hopefully that helps everybody in what we should be working on. Okay. What other questions? Hope that seemed like it covered it pretty thoroughly, probably more thoroughly than you wanted.
It works well, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right, good. What other things do we want to cover right now?
Marketing for me. I want to start on one. How do I get the flood going?
Yeah, so right now there's a lot of things. Well, let's talk about what some of you guys have had some success with. Right now, online marketing is working really well, and we've had some of our members use Elite Digital, and you can find their information online. They're a really good company for doing Facebook marketing. That's a great way, again, if that fits in your budget. But let me give you some other ideas as well that to work with. Look at the video. And Mindy, do you know what date we did that video with you, showing how to do, maybe you could look that up while we're talking, and then we'll come back to it when you find it.
Just a quick second.
Yeah. Let's let Mindy look that up, and it will let you know when that date was, and then you can look up. She did kind of a course for us on Eventbrite, because she used to work with Eventbrite, and so for the company, and so she's got. We'll share that video with you. But Eventbrite is kind of like Ticketmaster, or a lot of these. Ticketmaster is the big company, but they're kind of just as big as Ticketmaster. And you can post your classes and events you have on Eventbrite and get members from that. So she's going to let us know as soon as you just interrupt me when you find that date.
April 7th, sir.
Okay, there you go. She found it. That was really fast. I thought you'd have to look more. So April 7th, you can look at our member site and you can find that. And for all of our members, review that on how to post events on Eventbrite. If you haven't done that, do it. And you can post events for your regular classes and post recurring events. You can do online and then offline. You can say, free online karate, or free 2 weeks of online karate, free in-person karate classes. We posted we just did a child abduction webinar, not webinar, but online class Monday and Tuesday this week, a couple days ago. And we got a couple people coming from that. You're not going to get a flood of people from that one thing, but that's one of the things of the 20 to 30 things in your Parthenon of marketing that you can do. So that's a really good one. But let's talk about other online things that you can do that are really easy to do and really cheap that you should be doing on a normal basis. You should be looking up any kind of mom and kid sites if you're working with kids. Now, Steve, you're at Krav Maga school, so you can look up fitness sites, and everybody can look up fitness sites. Anything activity-wise or fitness-wise, and you post your classes as in whatever format they have. Let me give you one example. On the Facebook group I posted yesterday, I think, the American Camp Association, I think it was ACA camps.org, but it's posted on the member site so you can see the exact URL. And that's an association of all the summer camps in the country. And you can use that for 3 different things. You can use that, number one, because you could post if you're going to have a summer camp. I personally hate doing summer camps. I would rather shoot myself than do 8 hours a day of a damn summer camp. I'm never going to do that. But what I would post is my Saturday class for my beginners for an hour as a day summer camp all summer. Apple Computer does that. They do a coding camp. It's 1 hour on a Saturday, once or twice a month during the summer. That's what they market as a camp. So they get kids to come in and do a free 1 hour camp. So don't think of a summer camp as it's got to be 5 days times 8 hours and you're babysitting all day. That is what you could do a summer camp like that. If you love doing it, have at it. And Grandmaster Smith is a great guy to ask about how to do those and be very profitable with them. But you don't have to post your summer camps as, they're basically your regular classes. So on this, you can find out where you can post things. I think you can post there, but you can post these on mom and kid sites as your summer camp. The Summer Camp Association website I don't know if you can post those kind of camps there, but you can find out who's doing camps, and you can do a couple things. One, if you're doing those longer camps, you could post it. The second thing you can do is you can find out other people who are doing camps in your area, and you can use these in two different ways. One is you can find out the camps that are going on. Greg Macy's going to be kicking butt with this. Rachel, you might know more about this than I do, but find out what summer camps are going on in the area that you're at, and then you go in and teach a class. So you would teach a class, and we can go over exactly how to do this in more detail if you want, but you can go in and teach a class or two, or you can do what we essentially call our enrichment program, which is you do 2 to 3 weeks, twice a week, the graduations at your martial arts school. So you go in and work with these kids for a short amount of time, 2 to 3 times a week, graduation at your martial arts school. So this summer camp might have 100 kids in it, could have 20 kids in it. You know, but they either all do it as part of their camp, or they can pay to do it, and the money can go back to the summer camp. So you can do all kinds of variations of you go in and teach at the summer camp. You could do one class, you could do the enrichment program, you could do a bullying prevention class, you could do a whole variation of things inside of people's summer camps. And all that stuff's on that website. That's just one resource. You can look up other resources. So that's something you can do online. The third thing that you can do is contact those people and see if you can do cooperative marketing with them. So if they're doing a summer camp, they could bring their students to you that you could do a class for them. They may be involved. A lot of the ones that I looked up really shortly when I saw that, I just saw this a couple days ago, were groups that we would work with, like a bunch of schools that we would work with normally, or that we like to work with. Then we could take that list. We'll have the contact name and email and phone number of the person that we want to work with different schools, churches, and different organizations. So that's a good resource to use. But that's not the only resource. So what we do in our marketing plan is once a month and we've already got this list, but you guys might want to do it every week, is block off an hour of time to go refresh our list of online resources that work with our target groups. For a lot of you guys, you work with kids, so it's going to be mom sites. If you're working with adult market only, you'd look for fitness sites. There's a lot of those. For really everybody could, look up fitness sites. Find out how they're posting and where you can post in there. Now, let's plus that a little bit. Everybody who has a website that has a good blog, if the website's well search engine optimized, when you post on these sites, you need to also do a proper blog post. We don't have time for that today on how to do a proper blog post, but in there you need to link to the listing that you make on these websites. So let's say you find a mom and kids site. So we've got one, there's one called Hula Frog. It's a weird name, Hula Frog, and it may be in your area. It's kind of nationwide, but it's not in every area. We have it in Arizona. So we refresh our listing once a month of classes that we do, safety classes we do on Saturdays. And in my blog postings that I make, that I generally do a blog posting every week, at the bottom of it, the very bottom of it, I'll say, check us out on Hula Frog. What that does for your marketing is Google will index Hula Frog and Google will index my website. At the bottom of that, it's going to know that it's linked to Hula Frog, and Hula Frog is linked to my website. That's called a reciprocal link. And some of you might have heard the term backlink. That's valuable. A reciprocal link is better. There might be 10,000 people or 100,000 people searching on Hula Frog, and there may be, maybe I get a couple thousand people searching on my website. What you want is the combination of that so Google ranks my website higher. Questions on that so far? So that was one thing. Is anybody doing that? Has anybody got a list of mom and kid sites in their area? Nobody yet?
After today.
Yeah, it's very easy to do, and we just keep a spreadsheet. If I had Master Sanborn here, she could show you your spreadsheet. Just as a spreadsheet of those links and the information, what she posts. And if you just spend an hour on it a month, you'll find a couple, and then the next month you'll have those two already found out. You just update it, and then maybe find another couple. And if every month you do a little bit of research, you'll find more. I would spend time, now that we're talking about searching for things online, I would still spend time looking for events. I know we've gotten completely off of events, and because you can't do them right now, right? I mean, they're dead. They're dead right now. But that doesn't mean they're completely dead for the next 6 months. You don't know when it's going to turn back on. And if you're going to do this searching that we're talking about now, I would pay a little bit of attention to that and see when your events that were going to happen in October, November, December are going to pop back up, because those things might be open again, and just see if you can get on their list. Okay, for those of you who have done that before with us, you should have a list already. If you haven't done that before, you're looking for events. October is usually a really good month for that. But every month usually has something, events and festivals, and try to find contact information out on that now. Everybody's going to be up in the air and nobody's going to be planning anything, but that's exactly why if you contact somebody, they may be more willing to talk to you now. We're already on the schedule for a bunch of events. We were on the schedule in May. They all got canceled. What difference does it make? You know, when the month that they don't get canceled, we'll be the first ones there. So I wouldn't abandon all those right now and see if you can get on the list. Okay. What are some other things that we want to talk about? I can go on down the list, but I want to kind of hit what you guys want to talk about in terms of other marketing things.
Mr. Moody?
Yeah, go ahead, Marty.
Facebook ads. What's the best offer that converts the best right now? By the way, I'm in upstate New York, not in New York City, thankfully, but where it looks like, I think the whole state, we're in a region that's supposed to be one of the earlier ones to open. We're in phase 1 right now, but it looks like we're going to be in phase 4 with our Governor Cuomo. And so we're kind of trying to figure out how to beef things up in here in June, and Facebook's going to be part of our strategy. You've had some very good ideas, by the way, but Facebook is going to be probably our at least one of our strong focuses.
Are you using Elite Digital?
I'm not.
Well, and I know a lot of times people get scared away from using Elite Digital because of a price they charge for it. And, you know, it's not inexpensive to pay the management fee for Elite Digital. Here's the deal, though. You know, in the reality is, and it sounds cliche, but you get what you pay for. And when you work with Elite Digital, usually your ROI is a lot better. So what happens is you pay X dollars, and what you want is to get a certain number of members back. And what everybody needs to do, and you know, in general with your marketing, is you got to know one number. You got to know the number of how much you make lifetime per member. So what's your lifetime member value? If you don't know your lifetime member value, and we're trying to get you guys to get that number up, but how much do you make lifetime for a member? And then you can figure out how much you can spend. Otherwise, we're kind of working blind sometimes when we're spending money on marketing. But let's get to your first question, and then we can kind of come back to the more general concept. So the first question is a real easy thing to answer, and it's also incredibly hard. The answer is the best offer for Facebook is whichever one works.
Okay.
And I know that seems like I'm evading the answer, but it's true. You have to test the offers. Generally, a free offer will work better, because like a 2-week free offer or a 30-day free offer will work better because people don't know anything about martial arts. So usually on a website offer, we'll start with a free offer. And almost always on a website offer, that does in the long run work better. Your lead volume goes up. Now, if we do a paid offer, your lead volume is going to plummet on your website, usually a factor of 10 to 1. Sometimes with Facebook ads, we will run paid offers because the lead quality it helps you filter out the leads that are so weak that you end up getting decent leads in the end, if that makes sense. So the problem when anybody is doing Facebook ads on their own, there's so many factors that are involved in running those Facebook ads. It's hard to give the other advice, because when you really run Facebook ads, if you're doing it correctly, you have to match the ad up to the landing page. And so if you're running it on your own, it's relatively complicated. Facebook and AdWords are really, really good if you have, first of all, everybody's got a Facebook page. And if you have a Facebook business page, they're really good at telling you, oh, hey, give us some money and we'll get you a lot of traffic. I mean, anybody who has a Facebook page, they're good at telling you. And there's a lot of companies that say, give us X dollars, anything from $50 to, $1,500. and they'll say they'll do a job for you, and we don't really know what they're doing in the middle of that, and whether, you know, what your ROI is going to be, your return on investment is going to be in there. So it's a little bit difficult to give advice just blanket. What's the best offer to use? It kind of depends. It depends on what the rest of the campaign is going to look like. Are they going to do follow-up text and email like I think we're getting with the Lead Digital, and other things to make sure the leads are going to be conditioned. I wouldn't say filtered necessarily, but conditioned by the time they get to you. So I'm not trying to make it more complicated than it needs to be, but the best way, the only way to say really on an offer is whatever works. Now, if you were running a mailer, I would give you some more specific advice, because it's almost impossible to test that for the quantities that you run. For a Facebook ad, you need to run multiple tests. So are you doing this yourself if you're not using Elite Digital, or you have a company that's you're paying?
Yeah, so I've got, I'm trying to make a short answer here. We have the ability to technically do it. We're pretty comfortable with Facebook ads. We know how to do landing pages and
Okay.
Doing, you know, lead generators and so on. So I guess maybe I guess more to the point, there's an underlying question here, and that is paid versus free leads. I can tell you from our experience doing a $29.95 for a week of lessons and include a free uniform seems to draw better. We did back a few months ago, we did a series of free ads, and I just seem like the quality, like people that are basically getting something for free tend not to show up. And then in the back of my mind, now maybe this is old school thinking, but my thought process is that if someone's coming in, and even though $29.95 is not a lot of money, at least they're putting some money on the table. So they're kind of, you're getting them to a point where they're at least putting some skin in the game.
Well, there's multiple answers to
Kind of
that.
commitment financially.
There's multiple answers to that though too, whether they're paying before they come in or whether they pay at the door. There's multiple ways to test that. Look, I mean, my answer was still valid. You know, whichever one seems to get you the best results is the one you should use.
Okay.
So if you're comfortable running those and you feel like it's going to work good, then run the ads and test them and see which one gives you the best results. You'll always get higher quality leads. So the general answer is going to be, and this is for everybody, you're always going to get higher quality leads when it's paid. But you're going to get even higher quality leads if they pay for it online before they show up with you.
Right.
It's always going to lower the quantity, except in unusual cases. I mean, there's probably some anomalous cases in this case, but it's going to lower the quantity. And the danger is you filter out what would have otherwise been good quality leads. They just weren't comfortable doing weird karate stuff. So if you were selling cars and they knew the difference between a Ford Fiesta, I don't know if they sell Ford Fiestas, I would never buy one, but if you had a Ford Fiesta and a Ford Fiesta and you had a car lot and you were advertising those two things, and you know, for me to get a test drive on the Ford Fiesta, I had to pay $100, and me to get a test drive on the Ford Fiesta, I got to come in for free. The guy is more likely buyer if he paid the $100, 100% of the time, all the time. You know, so that you could use that as a solid filter. That guy's definitely a more likely buyer, right? But that would be a ridiculous ad to run. You wouldn't do that. But in this case, we don't know if they're just not buying because they're just not sure if this weird karate thing, I mean, Krav Maga or Taekwondo or karate or whatever they're doing, we just don't know if that's just too weird for them to even try. So the difficulty we always have when we do paid ads is lead quality filtering. And if you could drive enough traffic and you can filter them with the paid, no problem. So that's always the thing. If you're getting enough traffic and they're paying ahead of time, and that will for sure improve your lead quality. So I'm giving you the long answer in that. And those are the general principles. If you're asking which one to use, test them and see which one you like better. And as long as your ROI is good enough, go ahead and do it. Now, one way to do this, then let me give you the longer answer. One way to deal with your offer situation is you could start with a free, and the other way to do it is on the thank you page, they can upgrade by buying something else. You can pay something and then they buy something else. So now you still get the lead, name, phone, email. You can still follow them and contact them back, but then they can pay something on the second page and upgrade it in a way. And then now you're still going to do the filtering, but you're still going to capture all the leads.
Right.
So that's another way to do it. You could test that too.
It's actually
That's a
good idea.
hybrid. Yeah. So that's a hybrid way to do it. And that's true. Everybody's got to consider that. So let me follow up with that. Birthday parties, events, and things like that. So if you're doing birthday parties, we always do that free, because it's weird to do a birthday party and say, okay, guys, at the end of the birthday party, if you want to sign up, pay us money. I mean, if they did, for sure, everybody that paid us money is a good quality lead. But, you know, they just came to a birthday party. They weren't intentionally going to do karate. They just showed up at their buddy's party. Right? I have to give them a gift. So think about some of those types of marketing things. Or saying, if I brought my buddy to a Krav Maga class, I bring my buddy to a Taekwondo class. Well, I just came with my buddy because I came with my buddy. I wasn't coming because I was desperate to do Taekwondo or karate. So in that case, it needs to be represented like a gift. Hey, you have this gift. So then that needs to be free. So I know that's not exactly your question on Facebook. I think for you, for Facebook and online marketing, the great thing is we can test it to a large degree.
Right.
So does that help?
It does.
It helps. I gave the
It's annoying that we're in a position where we're not going to be able, and that's if everything goes well, we'll be able to open early July, but who knows? It just depends on the stats in terms of, you know, the number of deaths and occurrences of COVID and all that.
If I was you and you're doing that testing yourself, I would test earlier marketing for offline or in-person classes too.
Mm-hmm.
And see what response you get. Because I would want to be ahead of other people testing for in-person classes. And when you get calls, the worst case is somebody calls you and say, you're a big bad guy because you're doing in-person classes. You say, hold on a second, we're not doing in-person classes yet. We're just getting started for when it starts. And that's all you would do. You don't have to do the in-person classes, but you can put everybody on a waiting list for when you do start.
So
and then offer the online classes in the interim.
So you're suggesting doing the intros online, well, you're saying, okay, so I guess I'm hearing two things. One is to go ahead and, like we have been talking about for the last several weeks, go ahead and intro people and enroll them online and do online courses and then give them the months, you know, when they come back. But I thought I heard you say, you know, market now, do the intros online, get them enrolled online, but say, hey, we're going to be starting up in early July, hopefully, and you'll start your program then.
No, let me be clear. I'm saying when we're doing marketing, the job of your marketing is to get them to respond so you get them a conversation with them.
Right, exactly.
So do marketing. If I was delayed that long to July or to an unknown time,
right,
whether the state says it or not, it's irrelevant. I would be marketing like Groupon allows you to do both, what I just said, for free. All of you guys can do this right now.
Right.
We have in-person classes. Sign up for them right now. And you have your online stuff. All your online stuff's going on too, right? Somebody pays for the Groupon for in-person classes. You call them up. You say, this is how it's going to work. We're going to start our in-person classes as soon as the state allows us to do it. What we'd like to do is we're going to do your first lesson online though, so that you get comfortable with what we're going to do. Okay, fine. They're either going to be okay with that or not. And then you start them online and you do everything online. All I want to do is have a conversation with you. So I call you and I start talking to you, and I'm either going to do it online, or you're going to say, no, I'd rather just wait till you guys do it in person. When's that going to be? Oh, it's going to be then. You want us to put you on the wait list. Okay, great. You're on the wait list. Now you got a really solid lead that's on the wait list. But I think what's going to happen in most cases, if you do your phone script right, even a simple phone script, is great. You know, and what we're going to do for your first lesson is it's going to be online right now. Blah, blah, blah. You do your intro online, you enroll them. Say your first class is going to be online, blah, blah, blah. And most of them are probably going to ignore the fact that they signed up for in-person classes. You're just trying to get people to respond. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we got to get out of the mind. It's kind of like back what Sam asked. They're allowing us to kind of do something. You guys are all in this weird hybrid state. I don't know what they're going to do in London, for goodness sake. Dervish is in the big, huge city. They're starting to let us do stuff. Don't get caught up in, okay, therefore I've got to do the thing they said. I mean, they're letting us do classes with 6 people in our school. So I'm going to do classes with 6 people in our school. Maybe I'll do that. Now, I'm not telling anybody to break the rules. I'm not saying that whatsoever in anything I'm saying. My marketing can be whatever it is. There's nothing illegal about that. You could market like crazy and you just want people to respond. Now, I'm not saying that'll work. That may not work in your Facebook marketing or in the Groupon, but it doesn't cost anything to have 2 Groupons. Does that make sense? It doesn't cost anything. I'm just saying yours is delayed so much. And for everybody else, you're getting close to reopening, so you want to see if they'll respond. Who knows? Maybe nobody's going to want to do in-person stuff for another 6 months. You know, Jack says he's got his thing full. In our case, we didn't have many people in class. In Jan's case, she had a bunch of people. It may be different for everybody. But what you need to do is be prepared for how people are going to respond. So you asked about the price, free versus paid. I'm interested in what's the in-person or online offer, and you guys need to be prepared for both of those. So be marketing both of those. Don't just assume it's going to be one or the other. And then as far as in your school goes, be prepared for both. Do it whichever way you're allowed to do, but also not in a big, complicated, convoluted way just to fit the state requirements. My recommendation is you just run your regular class schedule. If the state requirement was 6 people in your school, then 6 people can come to class, and then after that, they can't come. And then everything else is online. That's probably not how it's going to be. You're probably going to be fine. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
try to keep those things separated. Always separate marketing from your sales process from what you're actually doing in curriculum. They're integrated, they're together, but you know, how people respond is going to be different than what you actually do when they walk in your school. It's going to be a little different than what you do. They need to fit together, but just because you do, like, you know, an online lesson or a $49 Facebook ad doesn't mean you're charging $49 a month, right?
Right.
You know, so those things, you got to see which one's going to work and test the best. Okay. We've got a little bit more time here. We got about 25 minutes. Does that help, Marty? Or did I make it?
Yeah. That's giving me some good clarity.
Okay, good. I'm glad. What other questions you guys have about specific marketing things so we can clarify so you guys can get to really to work? Remember, your goal is to have 20 things on your marketing list. And let me give everybody a couple things, especially for our new guys. There's an A to Z marketing plan online. You should have already downloaded if you've been with us a little bit. Bob probably pointed you in that direction. An A to Z marketing plan, and then the Mile High Karate marketing plan. That's on the Facebook group. If you haven't looked at that, and I actually have, even though we have a marketing plan for a year, every once in a while I send that to my staff just to run through that list and kind of as a double checklist, because they send me, in fact, today was it's the 21st, so the meeting before our last, I don't want to make it sound complicated, we have a Thursday at 7 a.m. staff meeting. The meeting before the last meeting of the month, so that was today, the meeting before the last Thursday meeting of the month, they have to give me their marketing plan for the next 3 months. And so once in a while, I'll send them that very plan, and they go double check and look through that list because it's got a lot of good ideas in it and a lot of things that you can do. And it really is a good start checklist. Now, you can't do the events, but almost everything else in there is valuable. We can talk about prospect lists, we can talk about other stuff, but what specifically do you guys want to cover next for our time that we have available? Or I can pick something, but I'd rather it be what you guys want to work on.
So I have a question. I have a prospect list, and I had spoken this to you before, Greg. I put out some at-home training kits for free to the school districts. I captured their name, email, and phone number. And now it's time for me to softly market to them. I have their contact information. They're getting free information from me. And now I want to introduce them to online virtual classes. So what type of program would you recommend for that? Email, text, all that? what kind of wording is that in the files for the marketing plan?
Well, the marketing plan has like an outline of what you do for your prospect list on a regular basis. Now's a big time. I mean, there's two things going on right now. And I don't think I posted the COVID, the COVID graph that I made up. I'll have to do that. But there's two big things happening now. If this was not the coronavirus time, this would be our marketing for the summertime. And the big thing now, and that's for adults and kids. For adults and kids, they're changing their activities now. Everybody's changing their activities. Doesn't matter if they're going on summer vacation, they're changing activities. School's ending. For adults, things just are different, so they're changing activities, right? So this is a big marketing time. So prospects, everybody on your prospect list, so he's got a list. Now, he said the word softly. I have no idea why I would be softly marketing to anybody. No, no, no. There's no softly in there. Now, the only reason we softly market to somebody is if it was a list provided with permission slips to a school where they checked a box and said, you know, I don't want to, or they checked a box or didn't check a box. In other words, they specified they didn't want to receive information from us. If they specified they didn't want to receive information, then I would be direct mailing them sort of blind, like it would be normal direct mail that I would send, and I wouldn't be directly calling them or doing other things. Otherwise, there's no soft about any of it. There's professional, there's not overbearing, you're not sending them, 14 emails a day, but you're going to be a certain marketing. In fact, in his case, he generated the list of people requesting a product from him. So by any means known, they're actually pretty warm prospects. So what we would do for prospect marketing, the reason I bring up this time of year is if on my normal prospect marketing list, I think we have a video on drip list. Other people call this a drip list. You would have a normal month would be calling, texting, email, and mail every month. So the question is, how much frequency? How much frequency would you call, text, email, and mail every month? And you could even add voice broadcast in there. Call, text, email, mail, and voice broadcast. So in a normal month, we'd be mailing them once to twice a month. That's a normal month. Emailing them, what email frequency should it be? 2 to 3 to 4 times a week. That'd be is a minimum on a normal month. If you reduce your frequency for mail to prospects below a certain threshold, and probably like once a week, sometimes people do once a week, your unsubscribes go up. Understand what I'm saying here. When you email regularly, your unsubscribes, if you haven't mailed the list at all, you'll get a lot of unsubscribes initially, but generally then they'll stay pretty steady and you won't get a lot of unsubscribes. But if you hit people really hard on an irregular basis, that's when you get a lot of unsubscribes. So you want to stay steady on your emailing. So emailing 2 to 3, maybe even 4 times a week on a regular month, and then texting 2 to 3 times a month. And this will be kind of outlined in that A to Z marketing plan. And what did I miss? I said mail. And then we go through the prospect list to call them. Here's the deal on personally calling the prospect list. And we have about 1,000 people or more on our last 18-month prospect list. If Master Sanborn doesn't have an appointment, she calls for appointments. So if you don't have an appointment, if your appointment schedule is, and ours is 4:15 to 7 or 3:30 to 7 every day, 7:30 really. If there's not an appointment in that slot, then your job is to be calling to get appointments set. So that's one of the errors. If you really want the answer in marketing, that's probably the biggest answer to give you. We could talk about all the different tasks to do. But if your job is to be doing appointments, that's what we want, right? To be full of appointments every single day, right? Everybody would agree with that, right? So if the appointment schedule in an ideal case would be from 3:30 to 7:30, I'm doing appointments, those 4 hours. And you don't have an appointment scheduled today from somewhere in that slot, what are you doing during that time? Are you teaching a class? Are you checking something on the computer? Or you either should be going down this prospect list and calling all of them, or doing something that's specifically marketing related. So if you think about just that one thing I just said, if during the appointment time, 3:30 to 7:30, the only thing you're allowed to do is either do an appointment or get an appointment, you probably wouldn't have a marketing problem in the first place. We'd be giving you some things to do during that time. You might say, hey, yesterday I had all this time and I just sat there because I didn't know what to do. Okay, I'll help you with that. Here's some things to do. But, you know, we could fill that list in. I just gave you the list. You look at that A to Z plan. But one of the things would be take your prospect list and just start calling them. Now, 95% of them won't answer the phone. But if you call about 100 people, and I survey my guys on this very frequently, because what typically happens is Master Sanborn, if she's got one of her flunkies, we've trained all the guys to use the phone script really well. So if she's got one of her flunkies, she'll just hand the prospect list to them and they'll call. If they call 100 people, they'll usually get about one appointment. And that's a pain in the butt to call 100 people, don't get me wrong. But they can usually do that in about a half hour to 45 minutes because a lot of them don't answer. And they don't leave messages every time because that would just be a lot of messages. Like once a week, they'll leave a message. Now, remember, there's 1,000 people, so they're going, you know, they probably don't hit that whole list, but once in every few weeks. So there's something on the prospect list. William, did that help? So you've got a frequency. Now, let's get back to the busy times. So summer, which this one's double. It's coronavirus, so everybody's going back to activities, right? This is return to activity time, plus it's summer, so that's new activity time. So I predict this is going to be double busy, weirdly enough. You just have to get after this. So it's coronavirus, double busy time. And this time of year, you double the numbers I just told you. It'd be 3 to 4 mail pieces, daily email, once to twice a week texting. In my data, I just did a look at my data for a campaign I just sent out, and text plus an email on the same day was 500% more effective than just an email by itself. And that was a small sample on my data, so it doesn't necessarily mean that's for everybody. It's always going to be that effective. But on about a 6-cell sequence, I just had 2 texts in it, and I found it was 500% more effective. So that may or may not be repeatable, but it's going to be more effective if you do include texting. And if you want, you can also do voice broadcast in addition to calling down the list. But I don't take out just having somebody personally call down the list, because when you call 100 people, if you do get one appointment and that took you an hour or so, it's probably worth it, right? Okay, does that help? Does that give you some direction on the prospect list? Yeah, so I would do that with all those people. Now, let's talk about his specific case. They all grabbed a package of, you know, some kid something package. So the beginning of the call is, hey, this is William Wong from Lincoln Taekwondo Academy. I'm not sure how you're going to say your school name, but Lincoln Taekwondo Academy, and I know you got the package from us, and I wanted to make sure you got also the extra week free of classes and got to schedule a private lesson with one of our instructors. We're doing those online now, so it's going to be great. And then you follow your phone script. So the call is, this is me, this is my offer, follow the phone script. Boom, it's easy. And we have like 12-year-olds that can set appointments perfect, just because we practice with them. And by the way, I recommend, if you're going to do that, practice before you do it. Just like you would with martial arts stuff. It's exactly the same thing. It's exactly, by the way, I say this again because people don't believe me. It's exactly the same. You have to practice the same way, just as much. Good. So hopefully that helps. So we talked about a few things. We talked about Eventbrite. We did talk about offers. I think we got covered a lot with offers. Talked about the prospect marketing, which is a good thing to have on your list. Essential thing. You really need to have prospect marketing on your list every month. That is one thing to put on your Parthenon, your 20 or 30 things that you're going to be doing every month. The other thing that we talked about, I hope everybody wrote down, was during your appointments time that you're supposed to be doing appointments, it's 3:30 to 7:30 or 4 to 7 or whatever you're doing, if you can discipline so that, hey, there's your kid, William, if you can discipline, so it's either doing an appointment or you only use that time to set appointments, whether that's doing phone calls or it's doing marketing activities, not talking to parents, not helping with classes, not fixing your accounting, not doing stuff on the computer, not fill in the blank. If you can just do that, you will probably not have any problems. Well, you won't have any problems. I guarantee it. There's just nothing, you know, there's really not much that you would have difficulty with at that point. Okay. Anything else? We got a couple more minutes. We got about 10 more minutes. What other marketing things? Hopefully that helped. What other marketing things do you guys have you want us to cover?
Can I ask one that's kind of a follow-up? I think it's still part of
You bet.
It's so like, remember I told you I had the one where I failed to overcome the want to go home and think about it objective, and so he left. So the question, I know I'm also got to just role play that, but the question is, what's a good follow-up between now and the time he's supposed to come back? I already sent one email with the picture of when they got their white belt. Is there something else should I send some actual mail? Like what's a good idea to?
So this is somebody who said, now we can move into sales here too, because I think this is relevant. And what you're saying also, Steve, is they came in, they said they wanted to think about it, and now they left, and they went to the point where they got their white belt. You got a picture of them with their white belt, but then they still left.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm with you. When they walked in and they did their classes, so let's kind of back up the process a little bit. When they did their classes and they went through the introductory process, prior to asking them for money, did you schedule out their next 4 classes?
No, sir.
Okay, so let's make sure everybody hears that part of it. During the process, one of the things that, you know, there's like 4 or 5 things, and I think I posted this. I'm the guy that writes down all the stuff, you know, and Master Oliver, Master Smith will tell you, and I'm the writer downer guy. I think it's under, if you search for overcoming objections in the Facebook group, there's a very good script that Master Oliver did, and I copied this from him. I'll give him full credit for it, but it's to be used at the end of an appointment when they say, I got to think about it. And you say, oh no, I understand. You definitely should go home and think about it. There's usually only about 4 things that people really are mulling over. You know, one, are you going to be in town for a while? And are you guys going to be here for a while? Or are you guys planning on moving soon? And then they say yes. And, you know, are there any physical considerations that and there's like 4 things. Okay. One of them is the schedule. Well, we already scheduled the classes. Do these classes work for you? Now, that being said, there's like 4 or 5 things on this list. I recommend everybody memorize that list and get really good with that script at the end. And that totally takes care of the think about it objection. And if that doesn't work, the guarantee does. But let's move on from that. During the enrollment process, if you look at the features and benefits page, that you should all have some sort of features and benefits page to show people so they kind of can walk through what the deal is with your program. One of the things that should be on there is the schedule before you ever talk about money, because that is commonly an objection. And the reason that may not have been his objection, but the reason that I'm talking about this is you want them to come back in for something so you can hit them up again, right? I mean, that's what you want. So if before you got to money, and this may have solved the problem, by the way, if before you got to money, you had in your list of things you were going to cover, we have a schedule of classes 6 days a week, and that cued you in your brain to pull the schedule out and then write down what, I'd say, well, Steve, what times do you want to come in for classes? Here's our schedule. And you said, well, I want to come in this time. And I wrote them on a sheet of paper. Steve's going to come in 6 o'clock on Wednesday and 4 o'clock on Monday. And then he's going to come in on the 15th at 4 o'clock on Monday and 6 o'clock on Tuesday. And by the way, we're going to send you, remember we just said this a little bit ago, we're going to send you your schedule. We're going to put you on our calendar with schedule. We use software called Schedule Once, and we're going to set up your first 3 weeks of classes so that, until you get used to the calendar, we're going to make sure that you get a text and an email reminder of that. Okay? And you're going to say,
yes, sir.
Oh, you say yes, sir. You'd be even more credit, but you say okay. And then, right? And then we've agreed on the schedule ahead of time. Now, let's get back to your issue. The whole thing blows up and you don't get to think about it done right? And they leave. they've already been booked for the return. They're getting an email and text reminder. They've agreed to come back. Now, two things about this. One, if they've already decided they don't want to do it because we blew it, the rest of it, well, they may not come back anyway. But at least you've got in a reason to call them to remind them about their class. When it gets to the point of money and they say, no, I don't want to do it, blah, 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 I need to think about it. Okay, well, that's okay. You can think about it and you've done all the things. Let's skip all the stuff and assume we didn't do it. We just didn't get the sale. You say, well, okay, we're going to still see you on Wednesday at 5 o'clock and you're still going to take class with us because we're going to use your 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah. Now, the reality of it is they wouldn't get their $300 savings or their $700 savings or whatever savings they would have got. But we're not going to worry about that then. We're just going to make sure we confirm their time. Is all that making sense? I mean, I covered a lot of things. Number one, we deal with schedule earlier in the process. Hopefully that helps us with the think about it, right? For two reasons. Understand these two reasons, very important. Number one, it helps us because they said yes. They were more firm on the enrollment. So don't mistake that part. If they said yes to the schedule, they're more likely to not go home and think about it. Number two, it helps you because then this follow-up you're asking about hopefully is a little easier because you have more of an excuse to talk to them.
Yes, sir. And he did circle the 2 times on the schedule that would be his regular class times. But I did not do the thing where I set up the 4 specifically next sessions.
Yeah, if you do it, so you can do it that way. What we know is if you do like sort of, here's the schedule, you can come whenever you want, circle the 2 times you like. It's kind of a vague commitment.
Right.
It's kind of a vague commitment. It's like, well, and a lot of times we think about this as, and I want to make sure you guys hear this part. Sometimes we'll show them the schedule and we'll say, look, we got classes 6 days a week, and the great thing about our school is you can come whenever you want. See, and that's a big mistake. That's a huge mistake. You never want to tell them you can come whenever you want, because guess what? They'll come whenever they want, and it might be no times this week. You never want to do that. You want to make them believe that they have to come Tuesday and Thursday at this time. Because like, if you have an appointment with the doctor, you show up for the doctor appointment. You guys had the appointment here. It was this time. You showed up. But if we had this meeting with you guys and we said, well, we're going to make it really convenient for you. We have it, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this time, and you can come to whichever one you want. Well, Monday, I can't really, I'm going to do it Wednesday, and then Wednesday come up, and, something comes up, and some would always come up. Some always comes up. So you don't do that. So make it more firm, and then later do it. Okay? Does that help a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's a sales process thing that will help you a lot. I recommend you look at the, we do have on the member site under it's going to be under your quick start, under the quick start page. There's a video of Master Oliver going through an intro, and it's how you do the intro 1, and you go through a kind of a checklist of what are these basically ahead of time before you get to the think about it. So are you guys going to be in the area for a while? Good. Are there any medical conditions we need to be aware of so that we, can do martial arts? And they say, no, we're fine. Or they'll say, yeah, I got a bad knee, or my kid's got ADHD, or what kind of is he got any kind of medication? And then you get to find out about that stuff. Okay, so let's look at the schedule and make sure we can make the classes. And if they can't make the classes, what we'll do is we'll never go further in the enrollment. So if they can't make the classes, and sometimes they have to check with grandma or they have to check with somebody, then we know that even if mom and dad are there, we have to get grandma in the intro lesson too. Or we need to get her on the phone, and we need to make sure that's all resolved. Because if that's not resolved, we can't really enroll them yet. And then we never talk about money. Because the rule is if you talk about money, if you talk about things before money, it's not a big deal. If you talk about things after money, it's a big deal.
I mean, this one was money. Like, he got to the point and said, oh, we're gonna have to figure out if we can fit it in our budget. we did the Dave Ramsey, budget committee meetings coming up anyway, blah, 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 all that stuff. But, I still screwed it up because at that point I didn't go all the way back and start over. I've gone back and been reading that overcoming objections thing since I dorked it up. And, like I said, it was at the point that he said they had to go discuss the money that I failed to recover the.
So he said they had to go discuss the money, and you said what?
Well, I started by asking. I did do the part where I said, well, just so I'd be clear, is it the down payment or the monthly payment that is the issue? And then he said, well, honestly, it's just more than I thought it'd be. He goes, and then he said, like almost in the same breath, he said, not that you haven't really shown that the value is there. He said, I see it as valuable. We just have to see if we can fit it in our budget.
Well, so does anybody here on the call, when somebody says they're going to fit in their budget, ever think that one person ever in the entire history of all, I think we're at 17,000 enrollments in our school, my schools, but has anybody ever thought that somebody actually went back and looked at their computer or their checkbook or their thing and actually ever looked at anything to check their budget? Because it's never actually happened. In the probably hundreds of thousands of enrollments and all the people that we look, that's never actually happened. And nobody's actually gone home and talked about it.
Right. It means he's not coming back. Yeah.
Yeah. So just so everybody knows that, when they say they're going to talk about it, is, so we can talk about that in another, we're kind of out of time now, but we can talk about kind of how to solve that. But one thing that should be a cue in your head, and sometimes when people say stuff, and this isn't necessarily for Steve, but sometimes when people say stuff like, no, you have shown the value, I definitely think there's value here, I just don't know if I can fit it in my budget, then the answer is going to be different. And I think it's maybe different than what you think that we should say, because it isn't about splitting the down payment up. It might be, so you definitely want to do it. You guys are just having difficulty how you would fit it in your budget.
Yes.
And he goes, yes. So we have to get yeses. So yes was for the schedule. It's actually the same process we just did. The yes is for the schedule. The yes is for yes, they want to do it. So then it should always be resolved there, because it'll never be resolved later. But we can talk a little bit more how to do it. It's a pretty simple process. And if they don't have money to feed we're going to be talking to them about what their actual financial situation is at that point. So we'd be talking to them about, well, so tell me a little bit about what's going on financially. It's okay to ask about that. So tell me what's going on. So you definitely want to do it. Let me help you. Let me help you with how we can do this for you. See, if you ask, is it the down or the first month, then they're very often going to say, well, it's both.
Right.
Yeah, it's both. I don't. But when they say, oh, you've shown the value, it makes us feel good and we think we've done a good job. But no, I don't care about that. I could care less about that. It doesn't matter. I don't care if they compliment us, because they're basically saying no. So no, I understand, but you want to do it. You're just having difficulty fitting in the budget. And they say yes. Well, we want you to be able to buy cornflakes and make sure that you can buy gas for the car. And they go, oh no, I can buy gas for the car. I'm really rich. See, you laugh like that. That's what people will do. They'll laugh. They'll say, no, I'm actually okay financially. Oh, okay. Well, and then you shut up. And if you shut up, then they start talking to you. And you find out whether it's like they actually have a financial problem or if they just don't want to. He said it wasn't as much as he thought. He didn't say he was broke.
Right.
So that has nothing to do with whether or not he can pay it.
Right. Yeah, no, I know.
It's completely different. So you don't want to do it then. And then I just say, so you really don't want to do it then? Yeah, we want to do it. That'll be okay. See, that's different than what you were thinking you needed to do, right?
Yes, sir.
Right? Yeah, so it's okay. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. It's not for everybody. But if you do want to get discipline for your kid, if it was for a kid, right?
It was for the kid and the father. The father actually was on the mat with her.
No, it's perfect. So if you don't want this, if you don't want to, for you lose weight and you don't want the discipline for your kid, if you don't want that, that's okay. And just like I'm doing now, just like, that's okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's what I was
That,
looking.
that helped kind of get you in the right direction of the way to have conversations with people. It's really just being honest with them instead of, okay, because guys, just remember, whenever they say they're going to go home and think about it, they don't. Whenever they say they're going to check on something, they never, in history of mankind, have never looked at a spreadsheet. They've never looked at their checkbook. They've never looked at their bank account ever in history, not once. Not once. If one of you guys have, then you're the weirdo, but nobody else has. Nobody else has. So one of you guys did when you were going to go, maybe you did, but it wasn't probably for karate. It's probably for something else. Maybe it's for your house, but nobody else does that. Okay. Any questions about it? Any last questions before we're done? We're a little bit over time. I'm supposed to be the guy that ends on time. The other guys end late. I'm supposed to be good at ending on time. Okay, so thanks a lot, William and Steve, for being here, and Steve's wife and family, and William's family, I guess, and his kid that got popped into the call as well. Hello, ma'am. Good to have you guys here. And we'll be here next week and work on the next thing. I hope you guys have a good Memorial Day and a good holiday, and get a good finish for the month. Remember, your 3 big targets are 80% close rate, get a flood of new members, and get your dollars per member up. That's our target. All right? We'll see you later, everybody. Hey, Mindy, you want to stay on for just a second?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Let's see.
I removed. Well, oh, you gotta remove. They don't have a. They should have a.
I don't know why it's not disconnecting.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's not hanging him up. Pause.